all of this is a question of culture. And what the evidence shows is that at Nottingham, a toxic culture was allowed to take hold and was allowed to persist. A small number of powerful leaders described in both family and staff testimonies as having infected the unit, created an environment in which bullying was normalised, speaking up was dangerous, and governance was shaped by self-protection rather than patient safety.
The Chief Executive of Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust, Anthony May, shared his reaction to the report's findings.
My immediate reaction was an emotional one. I was very sad to read all of those accounts going back over so many years. Then I think it was one of gratitude to the families for sharing their experiences. And then I think one of determination to make sure, as Donna said in her presentation this morning, that we don't let this moment slip. We should see it as a watershed moment for trust and that we continue to improve.
In the Commons this afternoon, the Health Secretary James Murray apologised.
To all of those who have suffered so appallingly, I say today, on behalf of the NHS, I am sorry. I'm sorry not just for the failures or the heartless and undignified treatment, but also because your cries of concern went unheard for too long, and so the government will act. We will act by taking immediate steps, including to expand Martha's Rule to all maternity and neonatal settings, so that parents can demand a second opinion if they feel their concerns are being ignored. Now, I know that some people may want me to accept all the recommendations in the review today, but too many recommendations in the past have been accepted and then sat on the shelf gathering dust, and we have seen more deaths and more suffering. I do not want to let the families I met in Nottingham or bereaved parents anywhere else in the country down. I want to use the National Maternity and Neonatal Task Force, which I chair, to create a comprehensive action plan to be published by the end of this year, which will address all of the national level recommendations from this review and others.
Kim Errington was one of the parents who pushed for Donna Ockenden's inquiry to happen. Her son, Teddy, who was born at one of the Trust's hospitals, died just one day old. The inquest found that there were undoubted failings by the healthcare professionals involved in her son's care. I spoke to Kim before we came on air. I asked her first to tell me about her experience at Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust.
It was quite unusual because for our care, our case, it wasn't so overtly bad, if you like. It was all sort of very quiet. It was the lack of care. It was the fact that nobody, despite asking for help, little things, I don't think he's feeding, I don't think this, I don't know, am I supposed to be seeing somebody, all of that, and it was just, go back to bed, shoo, basically.
You felt these gaps, you felt these omissions at the time, and you raised them at the time.
Yeah, I did, and I raised them, I was on postnatal for 19 hours, and I don't know how many times I didn't keep buzzing because I thought, that's annoying. But I couldn't lie down properly because I fractured my coccyx, so I kept just wandering around, and I didn't know where we were back because nobody told me. I kept going down to the midwife station, and it got to the point where whenever they saw me come in, they would scarf up basically, and it was so disheartening to the point where I was like, nobody's bothered, nobody's helping us. Teddy should have been on a feeding plan because he was at risk of being hypoglycemic, which is low blood sugars, which everybody knew. He was known to be at risk before he was born. He's not feeding, he's not crying, he's not weeing, and that should have been a trigger.
Your experience is perhaps telling because of the quiet and the sort of, just go away, come back when it's daylight, maybe we'll make a phone call. For other people, there were stories that Donna Ockenden talk about today of patients being abused by staff.
Yeah.
And just almost brutally neglected and ill-treated, stuff that just makes you think, well, you know, what was going on there?
It's horrific, and that's what I mean, you know, the lack of fear of some of the staff in feeling able to behave like that openly.
Hi.
In a place.
Sorry, the table's very crammed. Let me move some stuff out of the way for you to put it down. Pop it there if you like. Oh, yeah, I'll just take it off the tray. Thank you.
It's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. And on the flip side of that, you know, she talked to a lot of staff, and we're very, very grateful to those staff members who did come forward and, you know, speak about their experiences being on the inside of that toxic web.
Do you
It's really
have an
horrifying.
idea in your head following
Absolutely
how much
horrifying.
energy it's gone into it? Do you have an idea why it ended up as it did so long? Do you
So
understand?
That's a big question, isn't it? Because nobody has been able to challenge the status quo. The status quo has become toxic, and people want to protect their jobs, their reputations, their pensions. And when there are those type of people looking after each other and having each other's backs, straight away you are up against a very poisonous force, I suppose. It's a cancer, it's an infection, and it becomes the norm.
You and many other parents were very upset that some members of staff refused to talk to Donna Ockenden and her review team.
Well, this is the reason why we need a public inquiry, because people can't really be held to account unless there are powers in place to compel testimonies, statements, presence. If you say, cannot recall, it's not good enough. You know, we want to be able to see your emails, we want to be able to see WhatsApp messages. You can't be trusted to self-regulate, and the regulators can't be trusted to regulate either, because they're culpable too, and they've been part of the cover-up.
A couple of years after you lost Teddy, you gave birth to a baby daughter, didn't you? To Elfie. So I've got to ask, you know, how was she's 3.5 now? How was she?
Yeah, 3.5. Don't forget the half.
Never.
She's gorgeous and wonderful, and she keeps me going and she keeps me busy, and I wish really I could spend every minute of her childhood with her, but you know, I've still got to split my time between her and Teddy, because there's still so much to do for, you know, for him. So parenting dead children is, in our situation, just as time consuming as, you know, parenting alive children. But you always think your kids are special, don't you? Everybody thinks their kids are special, and oh my god, you know, you love them so much, but I do. I just feel so like, or so strongly about her. I just love her.
That was Kim Errington, one of the parents who successfully campaigned for the review that was published today into Nottingham's maternity services. Our health correspondent Dominic Hughes joins us from Nottingham. Dominic, there are so many reviews of failures in maternity services. I mean, it's a long, long list. Is there something about the nature of maternity service that lends itself to poor practice?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, Johnny? What we got today from Donna Ockenden, I think, is a really clear, calm, but devastating critique of these really terrible failures in compassion and care that have blighted the lives of hundreds of families in Nottingham. But my mind goes back to 2015, when I found myself standing outside the hospital in Barrow-in-Furness reporting on failures in maternity care at Morecambe Bay. And very similar issues around culture, around management, around staffing.
all of those issues played out here in Nottingham as well. We've got the Amos review of 12 other trusts in England that's going to report next week. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see some of those issues crop up again.
The Ockenden review, today's review, was really quite stinging about the failure of regulators, the professional standards bodies, the Care Quality Commission, which is supposed to oversee the NHS in toto. I mean, that must be particularly challenging, because they're the ones that should be, if not blowing the whistle, then at least holding people to account.
Yes, absolutely, and they should be the ones that people, as members of staff, could turn to and raise concerns with, and they absolutely were not able to. So again, my mind goes back to previous scandal mid-stats. The CQC failed to act in the case of the mid-stats scandal a few years ago. We know the NMC now has 96 cases of fitness to practice that it's considering. The GMC that regulates doctors has 62 cases, a further 300 information reports from the review we sent to them. So those processes take a very long time. They drag on and on and on, and I think for the families that is a source of concern as well.
We heard demands from the families for a statutory inquiry, one which could compel those who declined to come forward this time around, to compel them to come. Do you think there is any appetite for a sort of full-blooded legal inquiry, or do we think which is the national inquiry, is what the government is focused on now?
I think they don't feel the Amos review is good enough. The family said this review today doesn't need to be considered, it just needs to be actioned. They said the refusal of some of the former managers at the trust to give evidence to the review, to talk, come before the review, was appalling. So that's why they say they want this public inquiry without debate to answer some very simple questions. What happened? Why did it happen? Who was responsible? And what do you do to stop it happening again?
Dominic Hughes, our health correspondent.
And it's fine, I'm not going to do anything
We will
about it.
return to this story after the news at 5:30, where we'll be asking a former
If I do get
NHS
an
boss
infection, I'm
who
already
has
in
turned round
very
hospitals in
compromised.
special measures, how you
It would
change
literally take them
culture
5 seconds to
to
take
prevent
it out of my
catastrophic
arm.
failures happening again.
You
But
know,
right now
and
it's
it
19
is,
minutes past 5 and Ron's got the headlines.
The independent inquiry into grooming gangs in England and Wales has announced the focus of its first investigations. The areas chosen are London, Oldham, Bradford and Keighley. The World Health Organization says trials are due to begin next week of 2 drugs that could help to fight the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And astronomers have taken the most detailed image yet of the centre of the Milky Way, revealing more than 60 billion stars in a single picture.
Thanks very much,
They are
Ron. If
breaking
you
policy.
yawned your way
If
through
there
the
is a
day
policy
today,
that
join
wants
the
to take
club of
people
those
out of
kept
MRI,
awake by the
remove the
heat.
cannula
It
within
is
the hour.
hot.
If they're breaking that,
Record-breaking hot.
and
In
then
fact,
found
the
out
hottest June
broken
day
that
of
regulation,
record. 36.1 degrees centigrade. That last record was set 50 years ago, almost to the day, back in June 1976. Yesterday.
it's nonsensical, but I get it.
Our
I get it's
listeners
powerful,
working
I
or
get
spending a lot
control
of time
them. If they want
outside
to control
working
them, if that makes them feel
lots of responses.
powerful,
Thank you
then
very
I'll let
much.
them do it.
First, Luke from a pool company in the Cotswolds had these wise words.
And if they find like
One
controlling
advantage of
women
my
and
job
leaving
is
them
that
in
I'm surrounded by water all day.
entertaining,
We
if
install
that's the
lots
best
of air source
entertainment they
heat
have in their
pumps. They force
lives,
heat up to
then
the air to warm the
absolutely,
pool.
I'll be your
I'm standing in front of one. Feels a bit like standing in front of an air
but
conditioner.
you're not going to
The
really
biggest thing is listening to your
get
body.
that
If
great
you start to
quality
feel dizzy
entertainment.
or develop a headache, it's time to stop
It's kind of
Find
sick,
some shade.
to be honest.
and cool down. Not about being tough, it's about being sensible.
Claire runs a catering company, has a rather innovative way of cooling down her staff.
Thursday's going to be 38 here in Jersey. We have a restaurant in our barn next to the house and cook everything on a large wood fire and charcoal-fired Pira oven. I will be keeping the team well hydrated and will set up a paddling pool around the back of the house so that they can take 5 minutes to cool off as and when needed. Catering in this heat is very hard work, but we cannot let the guests down. I remember 1976, but I was a teenager then and sailed, sat on the beach, cooled off in the sea and didn't have to work.
Happier days. Next we go to Wiltshire, where Jade is at Chalk Farm History Festival.
It is currently 28 degrees at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we're just trying to keep cool and not be too hot. The festival staff have been really, really good and bringing around lots of water. I've got fans going everywhere as much as possible if you can in the tent. I'm also type 1 diabetic, so it's always a bit challenging in heat with diabetes. So it's trying to make sure that my blood sugar stay nice and high and not too low, because that's what happens in the heat. It tends to drop. So very challenging time, and yeah, just trying to keep as cool as possible and out of the sun.
And finally, a top tip from Keith, a chimney sweep in Surrey.
My method of working in hot weather is to wear a wet black t-shirt and a wide brimmed hat with a piece of wet towel in the crown. The evaporation keeps your head and core cool for about an hour or two. As it starts drying, you get warmer, so with that you carry on. The wet black t-shirt doesn't show anything through. I've been doing this in the summers for years. It's an old trick I learned in the army.
Re-wet and carry on. The big news this week was the shift from amber to red warnings. Today, those red warnings were extended in both time and space amidst school closures, travel warnings, and a fair amount of concern for those less able to look after themselves, in particular young children and some of the elderly. Our correspondent Nick Johnson is keeping an eye on heat-related disruption. He is in Slough, where we can only hope he's staying out of the sun. Nick, hi.
Hi, Johnny. Yeah, I found out I've changed.
I'm really relieved, actually. Good for you. Can you tell us, I suppose, first of all about travel and then also about what's been happening with the schools?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tricky day of travel, particularly for those travelling by train. I've been spending some time speaking to train commuters today. So, I mean, first of all, rail operators who run routes through this area, which is included in the red extreme heat warning, have urged people not to travel unless it's absolutely necessary. And if people do need to travel, then to do so at the cooler ends of the day. You know, commuters I've been speaking to said, well, while that advice is great, you know, their journeys in many cases are unavoidable. I spoke to someone who was getting on the train in Reading. She had face-to-face meetings in London she couldn't miss, but then she said it was okay because all her offices were air-conditioned, and I spoke to someone else who had to get the train to their penultimate driving test, and they couldn't avoid getting on the train. So, yeah, I mean, the thing is that a number of people are saying, well, you know, it's not leaves on the line, it's not snow, this time it's extreme heat, what's wrong with our railways? And I mean, the railway infrastructure in this country is just not built to withstand such a sustained, prolonged period of really hot weather. When the rails were laid, they are built to withstand temperatures of around up to 27 degrees. Once temperature gets over 27 degrees, they can expand, and then they continue to expand, they start to buckle, and that means that the trains have to run a lot slower, which means there are fewer trains at times like this, but yeah, a stress to people trying to use them. And in terms of schools, there's no official government guidance on a maximum temperature that schools can stay open, but it is a school by school decision on what they want to do, and a number of schools, around 1,000 I think today, more than that in England and Wales, have either closed or partially closed as a result of that hot weather.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. Nick Johnson, our correspondent there in Slough. So Keir Starmer was up in the Commons this lunchtime. It is Wednesdays, it's Prime Minister's questions, and he and Penny Badenol, Conservative leader, traded barbs over the state of the country and the loyalty or otherwise of his party in the PM's first session since, of course, he announced his resignation as Labour. The Prime Minister talked up his record.
Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago I walked into number 10 and found a broken economy, broken public services and broken trust in politics. Because of our decisions, my decision, the country is moving in the right direction, a stronger and a fairer Britain, ending austerity, investing in our public services.
To get something electrically off.
It's just good to be clear, the longer this is in, sorry, can I just finish? The longer this is in, it's very important you listen to me. The longer this is in, the more risk of me contracting an infection. I am immunocompromised. I came out of my MRI over an hour ago. There is no reason why this cannula needs to not be taken out. I have to be very clear with you because I have asked several times now. I'm beginning to feel uncomfortable. I want this cannula removed.
Dame Emily Thornbury is chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Commons. She's in Lebanon right now. And And we did talk about that critical part of the US-Iran ceasefire deal, but of course we also wanted to talk about the domestic political situation as well. I started by asking her if she thinks Sir Keir Starmer has been treated fairly by his party.
I think it's been very difficult. I think that Keir has achieved a huge amount. I think that if you look at the state that we were in as a country when Labour was first elected, in terms of our reputation around the world, and actually we are back on the international stage, and Keir has played a really big part in that. So I think that he's achieved that brilliantly. I think there have been some missteps, but I don't understand why he's been so unpopular with the public. Minus 33 was the ratings, and I don't think anybody's been as unpopular as that. And so I think even he came to understand that it's not going to be possible for him to be able to continue to lead us, particularly into the next election. It's really a question of
no, you will be filmed. I want this cannula taken out.
Okay, I'm going to leave the situation if you're going to carry on filming.
You're ignoring me when I asked you to take my cannula out, and it's live for everyone in the world to see. If that's your professional response, that's okay. I want to be very clear with you. I've asked 6 times. I came out of my MRI 2 hours ago. I am immunocompromised. The longer this cannula is in me, the more risk of contracting an infection.
That's fine.
This is now bordering on clinical abuse. You have your agenda. I don't care. This is more important. You are being filmed. I want this cannula taken out, and then we can talk.
I will go and find out if it can come out. Now that you've had your MRI scan,
yes,
I will go and do that.
Yes, you will.
I'm asking you to
yes,
stop
you will.
filming.
When the cannula is taken out, I will. Until then, absolutely not.
You can't be
absolutely not. Yes, I can whilst I have a cannula in me.
No.
If this is not taken out in the next half an hour, I'm calling the police.
I've not. No one's coming
this
to
is being filmed
no one
live.
is coming to
This
take
is
the
live.
cannula out while we're being filmed because we do not consent to being filmed.
Well,
So nobody will come and take the cannula out
then
while
I'll be
you're being
calling the police.
filmed.
I will be calling the police in half an hour. In half an hour, if this is not removed, no, you will not be closing this. You'll be keeping it open until you remove this callus. Do you understand this is medical abuse?
I do not give consent.
This is medical battery. I don't give consent to my body being penetrated by a needle.
Is some kind of vision.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I film. I want this removed. This is in my body. I want it removed. They're refusing to remove it. That is medical battery. I want it removed. No, because I wasn't recording when I was asking and they wouldn't remove it. So I'm recording now because they're not removing it. It's just ridiculous. They don't want to be filmed because they know they're not doing their jobs properly. I don't like having a cannula in my arm when I don't need it to be in my arm. It takes 5 seconds to remove a cannula. Literally 5 seconds. Honestly, this is just absolutely pathetic from them. It is just so ridiculous. I've been here for 12 days. Just take the cannula out. It takes 2 seconds. You know, I've got PTSD. I've got severe PTSD. This is causing me pain. I've already got an acute infection. This is putting me at higher risk of getting a worser infection. Just take the cannula out, somebody. It takes 2 seconds. But they know they want to have a big drama. Do you know what? I'm going to pack up my stuff because it looks like I'm leaving. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe this nonsense. Why on earth would I ever think of staying in a place where they're so anti being filmed, even when they're clearly abusing me by not taking out my cannula? Am I crazy? Like, I should have left 4 days ago. Oh my God. I'm literally going to call the police. I'm going to have to now because this is getting out of hand. I'm calling 999. I'm literally calling 999. 5 seconds to take out a cannula.
Rice pudding.
Oh yeah. I do like rice pudding. Yeah, I'm fine. I hold it for you. It's cute because I hold that bowl for you. You don't really need that.
And I've asked to speak to the ward manager. They haven't brought the ward manager over. I've just had CT contrast injected in me and Buscopan. I haven't had any of my pain relief. Hi, yeah, I'd like to make a report, please, for today. Yeah, I've repeatedly asked hospital staff to take out my cannula and they're refusing to. I don't consent to this needle being in my arm, and there's no medical necessity for it to be in my arm. Therefore, this constitutes medical battery, and I want it taken out. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's medical battery. They're refusing to take the needle out. It's also clinical abuse. It takes 2 seconds to take out a cannula, and I'm immunocompromised, so it leaves me at a higher risk of infection. Yeah, I'm going to make an online report now. And if it gets any further, then I will dial 999. Yeah, I've repeatedly asked for the cannula to be removed. I came out of the MRI 2 hours ago. There's no reason why the cannula's been left in my arm. And I've also asked to speak to the ward manager. They haven't brought them over. The doctor hasn't come to speak to me. And they're making false accusations against me. At times when I'm not filming, they're saying I'm filming. I make video vlogs and it's just my face, and they're now accusing me of filming when I'm not filming. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, I'm going to make an online report now, so there's a paper trail of this. Thank you. Bye.